Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Empower podcast, which is run by healthcare professionals for healthcare professionals with the goal of empowering and raising transparency and awareness with a goal of July 11th to have legislation passed in the state of Colorado mandating employers to provide and financially support employee wellness through a minimum of 2 wellness days for all healthcare employees and a minimum deposit in an HSA account per quarter that is tax exempt. That is approved by the healthcare professionals. Do you know of any, while we're at it, do you know of any healthcare professionals who would benefit from this podcast? If so, please invite them to check it out, especially if they're interested in employer-supported wellness. I mean, hopefully at this time, who isn't? Our goal is to continue running the podcast with healthcare professionals at the helm. And we're always looking for new voices to join the conversation. Even if your friends are just curious, please pass it along to them. They can just listen on their Perform platform and send feedback to the empower1@proton.me email. Again, that's EMPOWERA. It's to empower yourself and then add an A and the number 1 at proton.me. We have episodes up there now. Thank you for your support. We couldn't do it without you. We're run, again, by healthcare professionals for healthcare professionals. Today, we have our guest, and your name is?
Jane Smith.
All right. And Jane Smith, you're coming out of...
I'm sorry, out of what?
Where we're at? What location?
Colorado.
Colorado's where you work. Okay, cool. Thank you. All right. So we encourage our listeners to share their experiences anonymously too. If you prefer, you can also email us at that email I mentioned earlier, and the empower1@proton.me. Also, we're looking for volunteer members too, who can potentially assist with day-to-day functioning, editing, if you can. We can't do it alone. The Empower podcast also, just to let you all know, is available on various platforms, Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, and is dedicated to providing up-to-date and accurate information for its listeners. Follow us on your preferred platform and stay informed and empowered in the ever-changing landscape of healthcare. So sit back, be yourself no matter what, and get ready to be empowered. All right, Jane, this is a part of the show where we give a big thank you at the beginning to all healthcare workers on the healthcare team. That's all the way down from secretarial to janitorial, all the way up to your own doctors that still pop in and somehow are doing duties of nurse, which is kind of nice. And everyone out there in the workforce making a difference. You know who you are. You're number 1, and we love you. You want to go ahead and give a shout out to them and say thank you or anything specifically to anybody?
Yeah, I say thank you to all the healthcare workers, anyone who's taking care of the patients with that quality care that you know that they deserve, and taking the time to make sure that their needs are met.
Wow. All right, so we're going to start off here, Jane. If you tell us a little bit about you and your passion for your profession, and you can mention what was that you actually do too. I think you had said where we're at, but I don't know profession-wise. How you found your passion of working within healthcare too.
Yeah, so I guess I'll just start from the beginning. So I was a young mom at 18. By 19, I knew I needed to do something more than working at McDonald's. So my stepmom was a CNA, and I went to CNA school. Was doing that for about 4 years when I decided that I needed to do something more for my patients. And so then I went to the CNA school, or nursing school, I'm sorry. Needed to do more for my patients, went to nursing school, got my LPN, and now I've been a nurse for 5 years. I just stepped down from an ADON position, infection control. I'm going to school for my BSN currently, and I'm a unit manager in a long-term care facility. So I do have a lot of skilled nursing and long-term care experience.
Thank you for sharing that. I just want to say, usually at this part of the show, I ask myself, hey, Brett, is it who you're speaking to or whoever is the one that's going to be interviewing? I encourage them to ask themselves, like, do you feel empowered by that? And if so, say it. And I have that feeling. So I feel that you are empowered. So thank you. All right. So we're going to kick off the show. This is the real juicy part that I'm seeing that people do like. And that is the first question. And Jane, it is, what in your opinion is happening in healthcare?
Um, I think I've started from the bottom, trying to do more from the patients, to going into management. What I think I see is happening in healthcare is, especially after COVID, we have less staff, and still the money hungry corporations that are bringing in the same amount of residents with less staff to take care of these people. The quality of care is really decreasing for these people, and they're suffering. They're getting bed sores. They're not being turned, repositioned every 2 hours like you're supposed to. They're not being changed. Their call lights aren't being answered for 30, 45 minutes sometimes. Um, I know in my facility personally, they expect 3 CNAs to 55 residents to be able to do showers, charting, and to give that quality care, which is not doable. The patients aren't getting the time that they need.
So when it comes to loan, I think what it is you're talking about, at least in my opinion, would be what's called like a standard of care. Would you say like that standard of care that maybe you saw when you got in, like you mentioned, to healthcare? There's definitely been, from what it sounds like, it's been a transition. What would you say, like from that time then, and I guess your overall feelings of empowerment within the actual healthcare field, and your, I guess what that I'm finding too is like confidence in your employer, and then beyond money, and it's for your own wellness as a result of that so far. But like, um, yeah, how is your empowerment then? How would you feel your empowerment is now? And I guess knowing, have you taken time to actually read up on the actual legislation, or at least had it summarized to you?
Yes, I have.
Okay, what are your thoughts on it? Do you think it'd be, obviously it's not complete? It'd be nice to be more complete, but yeah, what are your thoughts on it?
I think that it would be important to have these mental wellness days, just because this is such a stressful industry. We're taking care of humans, not papers, not books, and everything that they want us to be doing is computer work and documentation, which is really important as well because we need to be documenting what we're doing. But when we're having these high patient loads, we can't even get that done.
So revisiting to you, going back to what you're saying about, in your opinion, what's happening in healthcare, is there like a past or like a present like incident that's kind of occurred that you'd like to mention today, or at least and share what you can, or ones that you think could have been handled a certain way, handled better maybe, or weren't handled very well, or not even handled at all? And then like things when we get to the other part is like, what did your employer say, like things like that, like what did they say they were going to do, and then like what actions were actually taken?
So I think with the current position that I'm in, that I'm struggling with, would be that I'm continuing to bring this issue to them of not having enough support, that these showers aren't being done, they're not being documented. And this was all happening earlier in the week, and I'm printing out the last couple of weeks of shower documentation, and people are lucky to have 2 showers documented for 2 weeks. Bare minimum, they're supposed to have 2 a week. So 2 for every 2 weeks is pretty bad. And as a human myself, I like to shower every day, so I can imagine how they're feeling.
Yeah. Yeah,
I think also just coming from a CNA, like I was a shower aide for years, and like I'm really passionate about people being clean and feeling like a human and being able to go out in the world and not be self-conscious about themselves.
Are there any other incidents that you can kind of think of that, I guess, throughout your scope, throughout your, I guess, your overall career, because it has been quite extensive in healthcare, that maybe you've seen as a CNA that can be maybe a common incident that can occur, or something that just, that happened, or just in general that, yeah, that again, going back to that situation as to what happened, what did the employer say, how was it handled, and then, yeah, and how do you think, honestly, it could have been handled too? And how did you feel when this all happened too? You can be specific per incident too, like.
Yeah, so at this time, I guess this story, I was working for the company for maybe about 5 years, from CNA to nurse, but in this building for at least a couple of those years. And I was the nurse on the floor. I had one CNA to 21 patients. I had a shower aide who I needed to pull to the floor so that the ratio could stay 10 patients to one CNA, which is an acceptable ratio. And as I'm telling her to, like, please stop doing showers and just come to the floor and help us, she's starting to get agitated with me and telling me that she's got to leave at this certain time and management already knows about it. And she's just going off on me at this point. And so I start walking away from her and she's following me, and I'm walking to my ADON's office. And as I'm walking in and she's following me still, she's still yelling. She's like, and I'm on parole and I'm not about to get in trouble for whooping someone's ass. And
hold on. So, like, was she like, did she have anybody else that worked there? Like, was there any other parties that were involved besides you two? Or is that just this time alone that you're talking about?
Yeah, no, it was just this time alone.
Okay.
And then, so as I'm like walking in, I'm like, I know you heard that. And I was saying that to my ADON, and she's like, yeah. And she's like trying to calm the situation because that girl's still standing right there and telling her that she does need to come to the floor.
So she's still present outside the door. Like,
no, she's in the small office. Would you classify
this as a hostile work environment? Would you classify this as a hostile work environment?
Yeah, I definitely would.
Okay. All right. Would you like to continue on with the story?
Yeah. So, as like my ADON's hearing this, I'm like, well, I need to report this because I'm getting like my life threatened here. Like, she's threatening to harm me. Yeah. So she's threatening to harm me. So I'm just like, I need to report this to HR, blah, blah, blah. She's on my floor working. She's taking care of my patients. She has this attitude. Like, I can't have her around. And so my administrator, the top person of the building, comes to talk to me and pulls me into my med room. And I can't remember the whole conversation. But I remember what he said was, well, don't you want to beat her ass too, though? And I said, I would never say that. And
whoa.
And he continued the conversation. Like I said, I can't remember exactly, but that was the one thing that stuck in my mind. This was years ago. I ended up writing that whole conversation out on paper and turning it into HR. I turned it in I emailed it to corporate HR as well, to notify them of what was going on, because it felt like a hostile work environment at this point.
Right.
And I didn't want to see her at work anymore. Like, I didn't want to work on shift with her, because it was never going to be a decent work environment after she's threatened to beat my ass. So anyways, corporate comes in, they do an investigation, and nothing happens.
What? Wait, nothing happens? No. Tell me more about this. What do you mean nothing happens? They come in and they do an investigation. Like, do they come in? It seems like intimidating. They come in like they're about to do something. Like, you're like, oh yeah, you're just
right.
out of your head.
Yeah, they.
What was the vibe you got?
They call me and
troops coming in.
Right, it was my days off. But the corporate guy calls me to tell me that he's coming in. He's going to do an investigation, and so I'm like, all right, like, I feel like something's getting done. And then days later, like, I get a call that, like, it was unfounded, the investigation's complete. And really what it came down to is the ADON that heard her threaten me backed out of confirming that she heard that.
Wait, tell me more about that. How does one do that? That seems like a very fine-tuned situation to, like, just, like, nothing going on here, and then just slip around the corner. Like, yeah.
Because that girl was saying she didn't say that. I was saying she did.
Yeah.
And the one witness changed the story to say she didn't hear it.
Okay. Question. So like, and this is for, for any kind of, this is what I think, like for any kind of case like this, there can be multiple false cases too. I'm not saying that's your case, whatnot, but like, I guess for me, I'm looking at variables here because I know this happens, at least for me, I've seen similar things happen, not the same, but similar. And I was just wondering, are there people of certain socioeconomic statuses that do that? I've seen it all around. Honestly, I've seen it all around. But in this situation, was that also a case that maybe like this potentially could have, you think could be up for potential reinvestigation? Like if it were still applicable, you felt like it was, and if this were to happen, let's say it actually happened in today's world, right? And that kind of thing where it happened, somebody wanted to go back and like actually have a potential reinvestigation or prompt one. Would you have done that knowing that that could be a potential thing? Or would you, if, and this is another part of the legislation, I want to kind of full circle it here, is there's the retaliation part that's being added in too. So like employers would be mandated to establish actual like departments that would handle these kinds of situations, and you could report them 24/7. So like, would you have, if that was the potential case, knowing that you would have no retaliation reporting this within the workplace? Because it does. Would you say it influences the overall patient experience?
I think it does, definitely. Especially when you're having that.
First question: Would you file for reinvestigation then? If you had a department that was set up for this and you had no fear of retaliation, you would not be retaliating against you by your employer, and that was upheld too.
If I had no fear, then yes.
Right. Okay.
But the things that are in place for these corporations that tell you that you're supposed to have no fear for retaliation is not true. So at this point, this was my first bad experience with this administrator. And then later down the road, he was only there for a couple of months, but I transferred a couple months after that because after that as well, had a different experience, not nursing related, that I was just like, I'm not going to be working in this facility, and I transferred up to a different one. Same company. Yeah, but I just didn't want to work with that administrator because I couldn't work with those values as a human being.
There's a wise nurse that once taught me, what you permit, you promote. And it sounds like you're not going to permit that, thus not promote it.
Exactly. And I feel like that's the same thing in my position right now. I don't promote 3 CNAs to 55 patients and expect them to have all their workload done either. I don't promote that. I promote quality patient care and patient ratios that get the job done for the patients. Yeah.
We're going to continue on here, but I just want to really thank you for stepping out of your being, Jane, for like, because I'm noticing within the target community, I've actually, because there is, on my end too, I've been trying to make outreach to other healthcare professionals to come on here. And it's amazing that people do want to talk about it. They want change, or they want to listen to it. But when it comes to like actually taking action, like that's something totally different. It can be something just as easy as hopping on here, or, writing to your state legislator, calling them up, talking about that, finding out in whatever revised code in whatever state you're in, like what the staffing is. Because I think we had a prior discussion to folks prior to the actual episode, and we were talking about that, where like, where are the numbers? What is the ratio number? And then could it be up for potential reevaluation? Right. That's what I mean.
Right. And I think even at that, working in a facility where you have all this management staff with licenses as well, you don't have the staff to take care of them. Why aren't you supporting your staff? I think that's a big thing, that there's such this disconnect between management and floor staff that needs to not be there. We need to be a team completely. We need to, as managers, be willing to step down and do the shower, which I did, I think on Monday or something. I think we need to be able, we need to go down to the bottom with the CNAs, with the housekeepers, which I also did on my unit recently. Like, I was cleaning out every closet that haven't been cleaned out for years of like.
Mind you, stop. Where you're at, are they within their JCO certification window, or like what's happening?
Like state-wise?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, they just had their 4th complaint survey in 2 months. And with 40 allegations within the 2 months.
And this is all public record too. Anybody can find this online if you're looking to have like your loved one go to a facility as well. It's all public record. You can check Medicare.gov. I've done this research too, folks.
And actually,
go ahead.
So interesting about this. So they were asking me for shower records, and like I said, this is something I was pointing out to them weeks before that the showers weren't being done or being documented. And so there are like states in here and there got a complaint survey about showers. And on my unit specifically, they're looking for shower records, and I don't have them. I can't produce them. I ended up finding some, but they weren't for.
Hold on. Where did they end up being? Where were they?
I found some in
It's like the Holy Grail or like the Ark of the Covenant. Like, where did they go?
They were in the drawer at the nurse's station, but they weren't for all the months that I needed. Like there was still like, and it wasn't like even for those months, like they still weren't getting showers like they should. Um, and I found them, and my DON asked me to bring them to morning meeting. I had them with me all day. I never saw her. She wasn't at morning meeting. Like she was never around, but State was in the building. So I figured she was busy. She was going to ask me for them when she needed them. No, this is just.
I can tell you're stressed out. You're telling me this, but like, folks, I'm like telling her like, you're here, like, relax. It's the same
I'm
thing. Like,
getting so passionate about this because
you are.
Because I know
You're like empowered.
I know she falsified information because she never asked me for these shower records, but they got no tags from State.
What?
So they were able to.
What? Okay, go ahead. Keep going.
They were able to produce these shower records without what I have in my binder at work still. How?
Yeah. Wow. For one of the largest organs on the whole human body, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Let's see here. Okay. So here's the question. After today, do you want to continue in your current occupation?
Nursing, yes. Unit manager in this facility, no. I am transferring to like a different building just to get a feel for it and see what that's going to be about.
You took a self-prompted wellness day to do today too, right?
Yes.
I want to give a shout out to you for that. Definite shout out for people doing that. And I'm for those who haven't actually heard, like I'm sure if you have a friend or a coworker or a family member, I don't know if you want to vouch for this too, tell them to take that wellness day. Tell them that. Say like, get a headache for your first 4 hours of your shift, but call in and be compliant, you know? Like, but do that because if it's not there, then where is it going to come from, you know?
Right. Yeah, no, I definitely needed the wellness day.
That's my statement, not hers, by the way, folks.
I just felt so stressed after the last couple of days. And even like they were looking at me like I had like done this complaint, like I was the one bringing up these issues. And now all of a sudden it's an issue. Like I'm the one who's new, and now all of a sudden it's here. Like, no, I'm trying to tell you this.
So do you feel like maybe with that role being an upper management role, you potentially inherited whatever it was that the previous management had left? Because, yeah. Would you say that?
Yeah.
Okay. And then would you say, let's talk about turnover for these positions too. Would you say that's had an influence on your career? Not only just within the role you're in now, but like just as a nurse that you've seen even through COVID?
Yeah, definitely. These management positions are such a high turnover rate. People want the title, but they don't want the duties. Yeah. So they don't really last very long once they get a feel for what they're expected to be doing.
Would you be up for making their job or like looking into first of all, their over wellness? Because this is theoretical, you know, I'm wondering if it'll even like branch down onto us. I mean, even within the legislation too, being your role that you've mentioned too, would you feel it more relieving that you could pass more up to the higher part of the ladder, or I don't want to say the ladder, the hierarchy, which is what it is, and that they would be able to handle more issues so that you could be more at the bedside doing your job, as patients have for some reason come up with an image in their head of, because that's what has occurred for them, I guess, in their own patient experience too.
Yeah, it would definitely be nice to have that extra support. I would definitely agree with that.
Yeah. And then to make it timely, to be able to do it, let's say, imagine this is a possibility that you could handle these like multiple times a shift, and it's in a system that works, right? Or a system that beyond what it is now. And then after that, let's say you had a stressful day and it didn't get done. Guess what? Of your quarter, you're a minimum of 2 wellness days. If it's that bad, take a wellness day. And I'm sorry. Like that's it. And I feel like that's one of the best ways to send a message, in my opinion, too. So the employer knows, and then make them financially back it. Because regardless, I feel we're still going to keep going into shifts. We're still going to keep having this happen. And that's what's happening. In my opinion, this is a big overall statistic too, is healthcare professionals are 2 to 3 times more likely to abuse drugs and alcohol. What's happening is that's just, that's what's happening. That's one of them. Another one is that like there's fathers and mothers that aren't being able to go and see their kids for like maternity, paternity leave, or there's travelers that are out right now that don't have the ability or the support. And even regardless of what it is they're paying off, not every traveling professional has the cash free and is like rolling in like a dragon on gold. Like that's not the way it totally is. You still have your single moms out there that are paying off a credit card from having to get out of whatever a situation was. Same thing with a single dad, that can go both ways, and having these days and this financial support from an employer with no kickback, like nothing back, just because the wellness of you as an employee matters.
Right.
Yeah. What kind of a system would you be more a part to that kind of a system?
Yeah, definitely. I think mental health is really important, and I think we're
wellness,
right? And we're barely just starting to shine a light on it when it should have been just a part of your overall health years ago. Mm-hmm. I mean,
daily,
right?
New beginning daily, almost like.
And I think that's something that we need to start teaching ourselves too. That it's not just about what your employer wants from you; it's about who you are and how you feel. And I don't feel comfortable working in a place like that, to be honest. And that's why I'm not there today.
Wow. All right. Is there anything else you want to mention? We'd love to have you. And I think I'd love to hear feedback from you folks too, on so far with the interviews. Again, you have the email of what you like so far. And if there's someone you'd like to have on the back of the show, let us know for sure. Also with that, is there anything else you'd like to add or any like message? Oh wait, no, there's one other thing. What would be an empowering piece of advice for someone looking into going into like your line of work? Like, can you include like questions to ask prior to employment, kind of things to look for on the job or while you're in school nowadays to kind of continue to drive through that passion that you seem to still have today?
Yeah, no, I think when you're looking into school, make sure you definitely have compassion, patience, and that you're not just looking for a paycheck out of this, because you are dealing with humans and it's going to be very personal. I think once you have your license and you're looking for a job, I think it's important to ask what the ratios look like, what the call-ins look like, what kind of support the management is giving for the call-ins, whether it's agency or they're coming to the floor to support.
And like how timely that is. I've noticed the timeliness of that is quite something too variable.
Right. If management's going to come after morning meeting, which is 10, 11 a.m. and everyone's already been up for breakfast and like they were just going to come help for lunch, that's not really the help that we're looking for. We've already done it all day. We can handle lunch now ourselves. As well as appreciation. We're over pizza parties. We're over just getting pizza delivered to us. I think bonuses are important for the staff that are willing to get that call and come in for a shift, whether they need the money or not. You need to appreciate your staff, the ones that are staying for a 16-hour shift versus their 8 that they were scheduled. And I know a lot of facilities have taken bonuses away. They want that. They don't mind giving the overtime, but that's really not coming out of their pocket. It's the bonuses that are.
Thank you for that. All right. This is part of the show too, where we close with an empowering quote. I got one here by Madeleine Albright. It took me quite a long time to develop a voice. And now that I have it, I am not going to be silent. What do you think about that? Did you like that?
Yeah, I do like that.
Oh, I just pulled that out of the World Wide Web. So I want to thank you, Jane, for coming on to the show. I'd love to have you again. And yeah, that's it. Thank you, folks. And again, I'm going to close here, guys. This is the Empower Podcast run by healthcare professionals for healthcare professionals. Thanks. Have a good one. Until next time.